Hi everyone, I'm Oblivious Quill and I've been creating webtoons for over 5 years now. Today, I'll be showing you guys how to make a webtoon page from start to finish. I'll walk you through how I set up my workspace, the tools I use, and my step-by-step process. I'll be using Clip Studio Paint, the sponsor of this video, to show you my entire workflow. Clip Studio Paint is one of the best programs for webtoon artists. It has built-in comic tools, works on PC, iPad, Android tablets, and smartphones. There are two versions, the EX and Pro. I recommend the EX since it has more features for managing multiple pages, but if you are on a budget, Pro works fine as well. Webtoons use a vertical scrolling format made for reading on your phone. So the way you plan layout, pacing, and storytelling will differ from traditional comics. Let's set up our workspace. The first step is customizing your workspace so you can access everything you need quickly. So, select Window, Workspace, Comic. This layout gives you panels, text, and comic-related tools up front. You can save custom workspaces if you prefer a different arrangement. I use Clip Studio Paint's default comic workspace and then drag the windows around to where they suit me. If you accidentally delete, say, the navigator window, you can just simply go to Windows and add it back to your workspace. Once you are satisfied with your current workspace, you can save it by selecting Window, Workspace, Register Workspace. Choosing a webtoon page size. When starting a project, select File, New, Webtoon. Clip Studio Paint has built-in presets for webtoon sizes, but you can also set up your own. A webtoon page size is 800 by 1280 pixels, but to make the drawing process easier, it's better to opt for a longer page so that you can format the panels and text bubbles later. I typically work in 1600 by 20,000 pixels with at least 300 dpi in case I want to print out my webtoon later. Note that only Clip Studio Paint EX allows you to create and manage files with multiple separate pages. Clip Studio Pro users can still make webtoons, but each page is saved as its own file and needs to be managed separately. If you want to add more pages, go to Story, Add Page. One chapter of my webtoon is usually around 9 pages, but you can start with one page first, then add more pages as you go. Number 3 is using materials. CSP has an asset store where you can find custom brushes, for example, sketching, painting, line art, and pre-made backgrounds and tones and 3D models for posing. Take note that not all assets are free. Some materials need to be purchased using the Clippy Points or gold. These assets speed up the process and gives your webtoon a polished look without starting from scratch. Throughout the video, I'll be recommending my most used asset for my webtoons, so keep on watching. Number 4. The webtoon creation process. Before you start drawing the webtoon itself, there are a few things you should prepare. Number 1, which is the most important, it is the script. Without a proper script, there will be no webtoon. The way I do scripts is to first divide the story into arcs. For each arc, write down the main plot points that you want to happen. If this is your first time making webtoons, I advise you to not start with intricate, detailed storylines since it's the fastest way to lead to burnout and you straying away from your story because you lost track of it, which happened to my first webtoon. After jotting down the main plot points per arc, further divide them into episodes. For example, in my webtoon, the first arc is the main character finding out he's a character in the novel. This is the main plot point. Then I write down the scenes that you want to happen in this arc. Remember, with webtoons, pacing is extremely important. Not every major event needs to happen in every episode. That's why in a lot of popular comics, there are filler episodes to slow down the pacing after a huge event. The way I script my episode is to imagine it playing out in my head, including what the character is saying, how they're saying it, while typing it all out in Google Docs. The end result is the script looking like a badly written light novel, but as long as it's understandable to you, the author, then it's fine. Just a reminder, you do not need to follow your script 100%. You can add or exclude scenes that don't fit the flow of the story as long as you draw your Webtoon page. Next are character sheets, which are basically a visual reference for your characters. Here, you draw out your character in certain angles, note down their base colors, and also details that the character may have that make them stand out. You can also add your character colors to a color palette for easy access, which I'll talk about later. Because my webtoon is a fantasy/historical genre, it requires a lot of outfit changes. So, in my character sheets, I would draw out the details, which Clip Studio Paint assets the character is using for this particular outfit and colors. Now let's begin drawing! First of all, thumbnailing or sketching. Thumbnailing means to create the rough flow of the comic and sketch it out. I first start sketching the panels and how I want it to flow, then drawing my characters, using composition to strategically place my characters in the frame. Using perspective, posing, and focal points help with storytelling. Then, once I have my panels and characters how I want them to be, I start adding the dialogue. I usually add the text in the sketching stage to speed up the webtoon process. Since webtoons scroll vertically, pay attention to spacing and pacing as early as now. Leave adequate spacing in between panels to leave room to put dialogue and make sure it's not too cramped. Most readers are often put off when panels are too close together, as it is not comfortable to read when many things are happening at once. My rule of thumb is to have a maximum of 2 panels for every 1280 pixels, so for every page. However, it is better to have 1 panel per page as it allows you to leave room for the speech bubbles. You can use the Webtoon preview feature to visualize how much space is needed in between panels as if you are the reader. So to use that feature, you go to View, On-Screen Area Webtoon. There we can get a visual idea on the size of the panel, where you want to put the dialogue, and how much space is needed in between panels. When it comes to sketching out my webtoon, I use a variety of panel sizes. Think of a webtoon like you're directing a movie. Close-up panels can be used on characters' faces, maybe to show their expressions or to show who is speaking. Angled panels are used to convey depth and bring suspense. It's very effective in action webtoons where it can guide the readers where an action is heading. And large, long panels can be used to introduce a scene, mostly where it takes place and the setting. Large panels grab the reader's attention, so it's highly effective when you want to convey significant moments in a webtoon. I also use 3D models to help me with the poses and angles that are hard to draw. Clip Studio Paint has default models and poses already in the program, but there are many more you can download from the Clip Studio Paint Asset Store. Once I'm done with sketching, I change the color of my sketch layer. So to do that, I go to Layer Property, Effect, Layer Color. This allows you to change the color of the entire layer to your chosen color. So this makes it easier to see the sketch during the lining process. Clip Studio Paint has a balloon subtool, which makes it easier to create speech bubbles. The flash subtool is useful for those who want to create sea urchin flashes or to showcase thoughts. You can adjust the shape of the speech bubble in the tool property layer, change the colors, thickness, and brush shape. It depends on your art style and the tone of the dialogue. Remember this tool as it will be useful for changing the thickness and brush shape of lines as long as they are in the vector layer. Speech bubbles can be used to depict emotions effectively. A round bubble is most common and used for normal conversations. Jagged or spiky bubbles are used for shouting, anger, or surprise. Wavy or shaky bubbles often showcase fear, nervousness, or uncertainty. Play around with the font choice as well so that you can showcase how the character is feeling. These are some of the assets I use for my webtoon, and these are the fonts that I regularly use. Using the text subtool, you can add your dialogue directly to the speech bubble and merge it into one layer. If you click outside the bubble, it would create a separate text layer above the speech bubble. Next up is paneling. In the tool palette, there is a panel tool, and I use it to create rectangular frames. Same as the speech bubble, the operational tool allows you to adjust the shape of the frame. The cut frame border tool is also very handy if you want to divide your panels into smaller sections. This lets you show different angles or actions within the same moment without creating a whole new panel. Line art. When you're doing line art, you can choose to do it on a raster layer or vector layer. A raster layer can be used when you want to paint, color, or add effects. A vector layer is very effective when you want to do line art. So simply put, raster is for coloring and vector is for clean line art. I prefer doing it on a vector layer since I can easily clean up my mistakes. The vector layer is also an object layer, which allows for easier editing using the operation tool. You can drag the lines, increase the size, and also thicken it if you want. To erase the line, just use the vector eraser. The vector layer makes it so easy to create clean, crisp line art. Once you're done with your line art, set the line art layer as a reference, then add a raster layer below it. I use the enclose and fill tool to fill in the base layer and the bucket tool to color the other areas of the character. Pick a base color. I go with gray so that I can spot the areas I haven't filled in. Mind you, make sure to have it referred to a reference in the tool property. You can just draw a loop around the area and it fills everything inside it at once. Using this tool saves time compared to the bucket tool, which often leaves unfilled spots or requires you to close every gap in your lines first. Next, fill in the rest of the colors using the Refer to Others Layers tool. I have mine custom adjusted to suit my needs, so feel free to use these settings as well. I color pick the colors of my characters from the color set palette and also the subview window. The color set palette is very useful because it lets you save your characters' exact colors, so you don't have to color pick them from whatever picture every time. For Webtoon creators working on many panels, this keeps character designs consistent and speeds up the workflow. Create a new set first by clicking the wrench icon. Choose a color you want to be saved from the color wheel. Click on an empty box on the color set and add color. You can click on the save color whenever you want to use that color again. Add your main character's colors to the color set as well. The subview window is also useful if you've already created a character design sheet and you already have the colors laid out. You can simply import the file and color pick the colors. To add a file to the subview, simply click the file icon. You can upload JPEG, PNG, and even Clip Studio Paint files immediately. There are multiple layer modes that you can use to shade or add highlights and effects. Most commonly used ones that I use is the Multiply, Add Glow, Screen, and Overlay layer modes. To shade, I use the Multiply mode. First, adding another color above the flat layer and clipping the layer. You can only color within the base colors. I usually pick a muted warm or cool color for the shadows. And for highlights, I use a combination of Add Glow, Screen, and Overlay. These three have different effects and intensity, so play around and see what suits you. Drawing backgrounds is very time consuming, especially if you have deadlines to catch up to. That's why I use materials I got from the CSP asset store to assist me. Here are some Webtoon assets I always use for my backgrounds. If you are using a 3D model as a background, it will look very out of place if you use it as it is. Let's use this 3D model of a house as an example. To make it appear more seamless in your Webtoon, you can convert 3D models into line art. Simply right-click the 3D model layer, or press and hold if you're using a tablet, and select Convert to Lines and Tones. Then this window will pop up. Since we just want lines, select Vector Layer and Extract Line of Texture. The black fill option controls how dark the shadows will be, so it's better to play around with the percentage of how many areas you want to be filled with black. You can preview it how it looks before pressing OK. Since this 3D model already has color, I'll just use the original model's color. I drag the original 3D model layer up so it's underneath the line art. Then right-click Rasterize, or hold if using a touchscreen or tablet. This way the model won't move around accidentally, as it's no longer a 3D model. Similar to rendering, you can add shading to the background by using the multiplayer layer and use screen layer to add lighting. But what if your 3D model does not have color? How should you color it? Okay, so first you follow the same steps above until you get your desired line art. You'll notice that Clip Studio Paint will automatically add a white base layer underneath the line art. In the layer property, change the expression color to color so it doesn't appear gray. Lock transparency on the white base layer so your coloring stays inside the lines. Then add your flat colors, render, shade the same way you would do with your characters. Once you're done with your main panels and you feel like something is lacking, try add sound effects or decorations like sparkles and flowers to enhance the reading experience. There are a lot of brushes you can use to create dynamic sound effects that I personally use, and these are my favorite ones. I recommend turning on border effects so that it pops out against your artwork. Another feature I use are auto actions, and my personal favorite one is the LJ Smooth Outline auto action, and it adds a subtle glow or outline around my character. Bonus tip: you should preview your Webtoon often while drawing. So as you finish up drawing the page, use the Webtoon preview area to check how your comic looks like in scroll format. If you have Clip Studio Paint on your smartphone, you can actually see your progress in real time. So this is extremely useful if you can spot weird pacing or paneling formats that will make it awkward for the readers. If you notice that spacing is off between panels, Clip Studio Paint EX has a feature to easily fix that. Go to Edit, change canvas height, extend or crop. With this, you can adjust the spacing without affecting the rest of the page. Once you're happy with your page, this is how you export your Webtoon in Clip Studio Paint. File, Special Export, Export Webtoon for EX version, or File, Export, Single Layer for the Pro version. The output size can be changed to 800 pixels, the intended Webtoon width, and the page can be divided vertically to fit the 1280 pixel ratio. Some platforms don't require you to divide your Webtoons vertically, as they have an inbuilt feature to do that, like Line Webtoon. So it depends on where you want to upload your webcomic, so make sure to read up on what platforms' upload requirements are. You can also upload your Webtoon onto Webtoon Kanvas immediately from the program. Once you've created your series, when you upload an episode, there is an option to upload from Clip Studio Paint. This saves a lot of time in exporting each page, then uploading, making it super convenient. So that's how I make a Webtoon page in Clip Studio Paint. And before we wrap up, a quick shout out to Clip Studio Paint for making this video possible. Clip Studio Paint works across PC, Mac, iPad, and Android tablets, even smartphones, so you can create your webtoon wherever you are. If you are new to this program, they offer a free trial so you can try out with no risk. It's the program I've trusted for years, and I highly recommend you guys giving it a go. And remember, making webtoons takes time, and the more you practice, the better you are at it. So don't stress over it too much and enjoy the process. That's all from me, and thanks for watching this video.